After a week of coldness, criticism, insults, and absolute chaos, something shifts. She reaches for your hand and her voice softens. She suddenly cooks your favorite meal. She looks at you the way she used to, back when things were good. And for a moment, the tension lifts. You breathe. You want to believe it's all over, that the storm you've been through has now passed, that maybe the person you fell in love with is still in there. So you reach back. You forgive the hurt. You let yourself hope. And that's exactly how the trap is set. Because when cruelty is followed by comfort and chaos is followed by care, the line between harming someone and healing disappears. And that's exactly where control lives, in that fog right in between the two. This episode is about one of the most confusing tactics within coercive control, which is baiting with kindness. We'll define what this tactic is, why abusers use it, and how it manipulates your psychology in ways that are almost impossible to see while you're still within the abusive dynamic. Then we'll walk through four distinct forms this takes, which is cycle reset affection, where warmth arrives after cruelty to erase the harm, withdrawal reversal, where kindness appears the moment you start pulling away, randomized reassurance, where unpredictable affection corrupts your memory of the event, and the you owe me kindness, where care is staged now to be weaponized later. We'll then cover some practical tools for protecting yourself when the kindness you're receiving is not real. For those of you who are new here, this is Stand Again, a lived experience platform for male victims of family violence. Abuse is not limited to one gender, but this channel focuses on the male perspective because it is so often dismissed or misunderstood. If this content helps you, please like, subscribe, and add the word Stand Again in the chat. Those two words might help a victim of family violence find theirs. So, what exactly is this confusing tactic of baiting with kindness? Well, it's a covert manipulation tactic where warmth, affection, or attentiveness is offered selectively. The kindness is not a genuine gesture of connection. It's a tool to confuse, destabilize, or reset the abuse cycle. The kindness feels real, it feels sincere, but its timing is calculated and its purpose is control. This kind of affection often arrives after a stretched period of cruelty, criticism, or emotional chaos. Just when you've reached your limit, when you're questioning your sanity, your relationship, or whether you can stay, suddenly a softness appears. A small compliment, a sudden act of care, a hand reaching out with gentleness. And for a moment, the tension lifts. You breathe. You want to believe it's real, that maybe the person you fell in love with is still in there. And abusers do this because it's the most efficient way to sustain abuse without having to stop. The kindness acts as a pressure release valve. It gives you just enough hope to stay within the dynamic, just enough doubt to question whether the harm was as bad as you remember it. It resets the emotional clock without requiring any accountability from the abuser. The abuser never has to change. They just have to time their kindness well. The tactic also exploits a psychological survival mechanism called splitting. When you are subject to prolonged abuse, your mind starts to separate the abuser into two versions: the good version, who shows you love, and the bad version, who causes pain. I know, I've been there. This is not weakness. It's how your brain protects itself from overwhelming contradiction. But it also makes you vulnerable because when kindness appears, your mind rushes to push the harm aside to make space for the version you want to see. You don't just hope it's real, you forget that it isn't. In those moments, everything that hurt you starts to feel like an overreaction. Like maybe you misunderstood the abuse. Like maybe you were really the problem all along. You find yourself remembering all the good things, while the bad things, the cruelty, the harm, the abuse, all vanish from your memory like it never happened. And the moment you respond to the kindness With trust, affection, or forgiveness, the cycle of abuse resets. That's what makes baiting with kindness so dangerous. It doesn't just manipulate you in the present, it rewrites your past. It teaches you to mistrust your instincts, doubt your memory, and question whether you're even allowed to call what's happening abuse. Because when cruelty is followed by comfort, the line between harm and healing disappears. And that's exactly where the control lives, in the fog between those two. Let's take a look at the four distinct ways this tactic operates. Each one targets your psychology differently, and each one keeps you trapped in a different way. Type 1 is cycle reset affection. Cycle reset affection is the most common form of baiting with kindness. It does not arrive during conflict resolution or after accountability has been taken. It arrives immediately after cruelty. The goal here is not to repair the cruelty that was done, is to reset the dynamic between you two. The goal is not to acknowledge the harm that was caused by your abuser, it's to erase it. Cycle reset affection shows up after a blow up, a shutdown, a period of prolonged coldness, or even an event that caused you immense pain. And just as you begin to name it or distance yourself from it, they offer something soft, a light touch, a loving message, a memory from the good times. This is not an apology, it's a deflection, it's a decoy, a way to restart the cycle of abuse without addressing the damage that they have just caused. This is actually how abuse sustains itself. The kindness gives you just enough confusion to doubt what happened, just enough hope to stop you from leaving, just enough guilt to make you feel bad for pulling away. And because you want to believe that the kindness is real, which is perfectly fine, that's human, you reach for that moment of peace, even if it means letting go of the truth of the abuse. It might look a little bit like this. After a week of verbal attacks and insults and contempt, she cooks your favorite meal without acknowledging what she's been doing. You finally stand up for yourself, and she responds with, I don't want to fight, I just want to cuddle instead. In the middle of a cold, silent treatment, she sends a photo from an old trip, captioned, Remember this, we were so happy. Or following a screaming outburst in front of the children, she tucks a sweet note into your lunch the next day. The longer this pattern of cycle resetting continues, the harder it becomes to map the full scope of the harm that is happening to you. Each injury is numbed by a gesture of care from your abuser. Each violation is blurred by a moment of warmth until the entire relationship feels like a collection of isolated incidences rather than the pattern of abuse it truly is. Type 2 is withdrawal reversal. Withdrawal reversal is a covert kindness tactic that activates when you've gone quiet. It's not a response to conflict, it's a response to distance. The moment you begin to emotionally detach, stop reacting, or start pulling away, warmth suddenly appears. A kind word, a gentle touch, a thoughtful gesture, just enough to emotionally pull you back in to the relationship dynamic. This kindness does not come from empathy, it comes from control. The abuser senses that their grip is slipping, that you're no longer fully engaged within the dynamic, and they act quickly to reassert it. The warmth is not about connection, it's about recapturing you back into the abusive dynamic. What makes this form so hard to see is its timing. The kindness arrives precisely when you're just starting to see the relationship clearly, when the fog is starting to lift, when you've found a sliver of peace inside yourself, and the affection pulls you back into the confusion, the chaos before you can start to act on what you are starting to learn. It might look a little bit like this. You stop engaging emotionally and then suddenly you receive unexpected affection or attention. You begin making plans to exit the relationship, and they become unusually kind or accommodating. Or you might even pull back from a direct conflict, and they suddenly become vulnerable and soft. For men conditioned to see themselves as fixers and problem solvers, this form is particularly disorientating. When kindness appears after chaos, it feels a little bit like progress. Like maybe the storm has now passed. Like maybe your patience, your restraint, your effort is actually paying off. That interpretation keeps you invested. It keeps you hoping and it keeps you trapped because the kindness is not a response to your pain. It's a response to your abuser recognizing they are losing their power. The moment you reclaim any sense of self, she moves to take it back. Type 3 is randomized reassurance. Randomized reassurance is the most psychologically destabilizing form of this tactic because it doesn't follow a predictable pattern. The kindness doesn't come after a fight, it doesn't come when you pull away. It arrives randomly, kind of without warning and without any clear connection to what's been happening within the relationship. This unpredictability is kind of the point. It's like a form of intermittent reinforcement, and it actually makes it really, really hard to spot as a tactic of coercive control. The random delivery of reward is one of the most powerful conditioning mechanisms within psychology. It's the same principle that makes gambling addictive. When you can't predict when the good things will come, you actually become hyper focused on chasing it. And when kindness reappears, especially when it's random, your brain grabs onto it like it's a lifeline. You don't just want to believe it's real, you need it to be real. And so the recent pain gets temporarily erased. It's rewritten, it's forgotten. For men who grew up in environments where affection was scarce, where physical touch, verbal affirmation, and emotional warmth were rationed, this form of manipulation is extremely powerful. Those moments of kindness feel significant. They feel like proof that you matter. And that makes you deeply attached to them, even when they are surrounded by harm. The scarcity you learn in childhood makes intermittent affection feel precious rather than manipulative. It might look a little bit like this. You get a sudden compliment or kindness across a long stretch of coldness, but not directly after harm. You get a tender moment that doesn't match the recent emotional climate, creating confusion. You get affectionate statements like, "You can trust me," or "I would never hurt you," offered with no accountability, or even nostalgic or loving memories dropped into the conversation with no context. The damage here compounds because you stop trusting the moments when you do feel hurt, because the affection always shows up eventually. And when it does, it kind of makes you question everything. You wonder if you were wrong, if you were too sensitive, if you were too damaged to recognize care when it did show up. And in that fog of doubt, you actually start to lose yourself in the addiction of chasing more randomized affection. Type 4 is the "you owe me" kindness, which, to be honest, used to work really effectively on me. "You owe me" kindness is a manipulative tactic where rare performative gestures of care are deliberately staged. These acts are not offered to support you, they are offered to build future leverage. The kindness is out of character and often strategically timed to be witnessed or remembered. Later, it's used as proof that your abuser was always loving, always helpful, always supportive, even when the broader pattern of abuse shows otherwise. What makes this tactic covert is that the act itself looks caring. A photo is taken, a memory is created, a sentence is crafted for others to overhear. But underneath, it's not about connection, it's about control. The act becomes propaganda, a curated moment that can later be weaponized to deny your experience, rewrite the past, or shift blame back onto you. Here you might see things like she helps with 5 minutes worth of labor, but will consistently reference it later as though it was always fully shared work. You remember when we renovated the house together? Or she might make you a cup of tea once, then points to it for weeks as proof of her care of you. Or she might appear warm or attentive only when others are watching, then use that moment as evidence that she is always treating you well. Men are often taught to value actions over words. And in addition to that, we're often taught not to brag, to be humble about the things that we do. So when your abuser highlights their what you owe me acts of kindness, this form becomes especially convincing as a type of manipulation. If she did something nice, it must therefore mean something. If she showed up once, then she must care. The possibility that the kindness can be a tactic, a tool of manipulation, does not fit the framework men are typically given for understanding relationships. So the manipulation here goes unnamed. And what goes unnamed often stays invisible to you within the abusive dynamic. You start doubting the imbalance. You feel guilt for not acknowledging their efforts. You let the narrative stand because calling it out feels petty. But deep down, you know the kindness was not real. It was a performance, and that performance will be used against you the moment she needs to. If you recognize that you're living with this kind of covert manipulation, there are some things that you can do to protect your mind while you figure out what you need to do next. The first tool is pattern logging. Start documenting what happens. Write down the cruelty when it happens, note the date, what was said or what was done, how it made you feel. Then, when the kindness appeared, write that down too. Note the timing, note whether any accountability was offered. Note whether the harm was acknowledged or simply bypassed. This is not about building case, it's about building clarity. When your memory is being manipulated, external records become your anchor back to the truth. They let you see the cycle that your brain is being trained to forget. The second tool is delaying response. When kindness arrives after harm, do not respond to that kindness immediately. Give yourself some space, give yourself some time, a few hours a day. Let the fog lift before you decide how to engage. This pause interrupts that cycle. It stops you from being swept up into forgiveness before you've had time to process what's happening. You don't have to reject the kindness, but you don't have to absorb it uncritically either. The pause gives you time to reclaim some of your agency. The third tool is separating behavior from intent. When you receive kindness, ask yourself, was any accountability offered? Was the harm acknowledged? Or did the kindness arrive as a replacement for repair? In healthy relationships, kindness follows responsibility. In abusive relationships, kindness replaces it to mask it or to hide it. Learning to distinguish between the two protects you from being manipulated by gestures that look like love but function as control. If you have been baited with kindness, you're not alone. If you've found yourself forgiving without really understanding why, or if you've watched your memory of harm dissolve the moment warmth reappears, you're not weak and you are not naive. You've been targeted by one of the most psychologically sophisticated tactics within an abuser's playbook. Kindness, real kindness, does not erase harm, it acknowledges it. It does not arrive to stop you from leaving, it arrives because somebody cares. It does not require you to forget what happened in order to receive the kindness. It holds space for the truth. In a healthy relationship, affection is not currency. It's not something to be counted, weaponized, or held as proof that you are hard to love. You are allowed to receive care without owing anything back. And when kindness is offered, it does not come with strings. It doesn't demand you stay. It doesn't imply you were overreacting. It's simply there. It's stable, it's genuine, it's unforced. You deserve kindness that does not make you question your instincts. You deserve love that does not erase your pain. Thank you. This is Stand Again, lived experience platform for male survivors of family violence. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Your voice might just help another man find his. If you're looking for one on one support, you can book coaching with a member of the Stand Again team. Simply visit standagain.com.au, where you will also find grounded information on surviving and recovering from family violence as a man. As always, remember that no matter how many times you've been knocked down, you can stand again.